Good afternoon. Our group project decided to take a closer look into the oyster crisis in Apalachicola. Over the past several years, oyster production in the region has declined for numerous reasons, causing oyster harvesters to be able to get less and less oysters each year, causing a skyrocket in prices. Because of the short supply of oysters, many harvesters believe that the bay will be shut down for a period of time. The first things we're going to look into are the reasons why the shortage has occurred and the anatomy of Apalachicola Bay.
First off, we're going to start off with explaining the anatomy of Apalachicola Bay.
The main source of fresh water for the bay is the Apalachicola River, which flows directly into this area of the bay. The bay is also protected from the rest of the Gulf by a series of outer islands. These islands ensure calm water conditions and a limited amount of wind. The oysters are clumped together in large oyster beds, which reside near the mouth of the river and extend to areas all across the bay. They start developing close to the mouth of the river and extend across the bay. Along the shores of the bay are several communities in which harvesters reside, with the city of Apalachicola being the epicenter of the region. And Apalachicola is located right on the mouth of the river. In normal circumstances, the Apalachicola River deposits a large amount of sediment into the bay. This sediment is the primary source of food for these large oyster beds, and it allows them to effectively grow and reproduce. However, the current problem resides in the fact that this river is depositing less sediment and having less flow of fresh water. As a result, the oyster beds are not getting the proper nutrients they need. This has caused the oyster beds to shrink and the size of individual oysters to decrease. With smaller oyster beds, the supply has shrunk for harvesters. They are forced to take fewer oysters and charge a higher price for them. Now that you are aware of the reasons why oyster growth has been stumped, it's time to focus on the reason why there is less sediment in the Apalachicola River. Here is the full map of the Apalachicola River. The river begins in the Appalachian Mountains in northern Georgia, and it ends in Apalachicola Bay on the Gulf of Mexico. The problem of the sediment level arises from North Georgia with Lake Lanier, which is used as a freshwater reservoir for Atlanta and Cobb County. The blocking of water from the Apalachicola River to Lake Lanier has caused a decrease in the amount of sediment flow down the Apalachicola River, thus inhibiting oyster growth in Florida. Although the state of Florida has approached the state of Georgia about this issue, both governments have been unable to implement an effective call to action due to conflicting interests. Now that we've looked into the problem, we've gone to several seafood markets and restaurants here in Tallahassee to get their opinion on the situation. We're here at Barnacle Bill's on Monroe Street to talk to their management about the Apalachicola oyster situation. Alright, and how long have you worked here at Barnacle Bill's?
36 years.
Okay, so...
Since the beginning.
Alright, so you've been the manager the entire way through?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you explain the process, how you acquire oysters from Apalachicola?
We acquire them, we've used the same catchers. We went 20 years with one guy, and then he just got too old to do it. 25 years. And now we're with another lady. We've been with her 25, so 10 years. So we get them from the same people. They catch the bags, process them at the oyster house, wash them, tag them, and bring them to us.
Okay. And how has the recent decline of oyster production affected the Barnacle Bills?
We've been in a damn just free fall since 4/20/2010, since the oil spill.
Okay.
It has affected everything. It wiped out a Louisiana cycle, which put more. The supply and demand is out of balance. Way more demand than the supply can handle. So the prices have skyrocketed. But it all started with the oil spill. And, you know, we did do a lot of harvesting. You know, they thought oil would eventually make it in Apalachicola Bay. So they pretty much just said catch what you can catch. And so that took the bars down pretty far. And then Louisiana never came back. Parts of it did, and parts of Texas came back. So there's some other sources. Virginia is doing. They brought their industry back from nothing to thriving with a aquaculture, and a lot of the people from our Department of Ag have been up there and looked to see how they're doing it. You know, anything new, anything different. You know, to see if there's a better way to do it. We're still doing the things in Apalachicola we did 100 years ago, and the bay is, you know, we've been to, in that. When Elaine sat out there in '83 and just spun, it was a Category 1, never got, but it was in the same spot for 3 days. It buried the oysters. They predicted a 98% kill in Appalachia. So that, for the next 6 months, we got oysters out of Virginia. And when the oysters came back, they were everywhere. So it actually did, it just paused it enough, or nature took care of itself.
I know you mentioned different locations of getting oysters, such as in Texas and Virginia.
Right.
Over the past few years, there's a decline in oysters in Apalachicola. Forced you guys to buy oysters from Texas.
We had the opportunity to make a choice. They're still available in Appalachia. Last year, Appalachia opened $9 a bag. Texas opened $9 a bag, cheaper than Appalachia. So of course everybody switched to Texas oysters like that, and then that brought the Appalachia price down too. You know, it was when there's only oysters in Appalachia, and 200 people want them, and they only have enough for 100 people, the price goes up. And that's just round out numbers. You know, everybody wants it. So supply. When Texas opened in November, they came in under Appalachia again this year. So Texas oysters are being used as a substitute just because of the price. You know, we still have Appalachia product available. Texas is available. Virginia is available, and even some in Louisiana. So there's. You know, we're now in the time of the year where we have 4 different areas, and Virginia, 4 areas we can get oysters.
Okay. Restaurants.
What they're trying to do with the new regulations is ensure that the oysters are being caught correctly in the correct areas, and that we are offering a product that has been handled to prevent any gaps in the time it's caught, processed, and harvested, to me, to wipe out all the gaps for bacterial growth.
Okay.
Our summer rules, the oystermen have to be in by 1 o'clock, and the oysters have to, between 1 and 3, they're in the cooler, and then the Department of Ag takes the temperature. And they use a formula based on the outdoor temperature and the ambient temperature of the water. Now the temperature of the water and the ambient temperature outside, and so in 2 hours those oysters must fall in temperature by X amount of degrees. And we, as far as I know, we've cut our Vibrio-related illnesses down and had no fatalities in 3 years. And so that's good, because they're still racking up 12 to 15 a year fatalities from water infestation. There's people unknowingly swimming in the Gulf of Mexico that have an immune system malfunction, and nobody told them that it's not safe.
Has there been any notable customer reaction to the rise in prices of oysters?
Anytime you raise prices, customers are going to want to know why. Now this has been in the news long enough. It hasn't been a shock, but what we've done prior to the oil spill, we were paying $25 a bag. Oysters were, I think, $7 a dozen. And for $7 a dozen, you can sit around the bar, have fun, eat oysters, mess around with your friends. It puts it in the fun category. It's a fun thing to do, and it's affordable. Now we're at $11 a dozen. It's still fun, but it's not as affordable. So yeah, it's hurt. We were paying $25 for a bag in 2010, and now we are at $65 a bag in 2 years. breed.
Okay, I know there's been several, like the government has contemplated doing like a halt, basically like an off season for oyster and halting the production, sort of give them time to grow. How do you plan to respond if oyster production in Apalachicola is halted for a period of time?
We'll lock up and go. That much of our business is oyster related. We wouldn't be able to take oysters off the menu and get by with it, I don't think.
I know the government has issued subsidies to oyster harvesters. Have they issued any aid or subsidies for restaurants?
No, we're not going to get any aid or any kind of help at all for restaurants. They won't do it. That they can get away. I think better management of the bay, they wouldn't have to shut it down. They need to do the seeding, which they're doing now, and get that done right. And we do a winter harvest in one area and a summer harvest in another. So the one thing we don't do is when we're harvesting all the summer beds is have somebody working the winter beds. Seeding them, keeping the oysters spread out, keeping them where they can grow. And they're getting better at it. They're trying new programs so they can keep them, all the oysters growing. But right now what it is the demand is so high. Now, the demand for Florida oysters will go down from November to April because you'll have Texas is open, Virginia's still going steady. It's the height of their season. And the Louisiana ones have come back around. Texas is a either 6 or 9 month harvest, and then they stop. They don't do any harvest in the summer months. Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, and Virginia harvest all year long. And so it's been a good system. There's always been plenty of oysters, but when you have 90 days of just not uncontrollable oil floating around, that's where it all started. And that threw everything in an imbalance. And since then we've been catching up. Now the oysters we have this year for this time of the year are bigger and fuller than we had this year last time. So to me that's a plus. The price is a minus, but that's because everybody wants it. Now with Texas open November 1st, it's been easier to get the Florida oysters. We're paying more for them, but so many people have switched over to the Texas ones. So now we have I don't have to pick up the phone every day and see what everybody's doing. I know I can make one call and oysters will come.
So reverse the problem or lessen the damage?
But first, they're still figuring out what the damage actually is. And if it can, there'll be parts of Louisiana that won't reverse. They'll never come back. The areas that have oysters in them, they need like a growth management project. Seed them at the right time of the year, manage the production, know what's out there. The Department of Ag sends divers down, and if I think it's over 300 bushels an acre is unlimited harvest. And when we went into the summer beds, we had one at 3/4 full and 2 summer beds that were over half full. So they limited them. They said it's a limited harvest, fishing 4 days a week. So they had the regulations in place to try and manage the thing. They need to stay on that course. It's just been a free fall up until we did get better regulations on management down there. And that's an important part of it because they'll grow. It's like you've got a harvesting area, and then when you're over here harvesting another area, you've got to maintain the one you're not on. It's like if you're picking corn. Once the corn's picked, you plow the field up and reseed it. So that's what we're doing. And they just need to keep that up, and I think it'll come back. I don't know about price because there's not as many oysters available to market now as there was prior to when we had the problem with that. That threw everything off. The kicker is Virginia has come back as a player now, and they're putting out a good product. It's just they haven't been doing it long enough to control the price. So it's the top of the line. I mean, it's the most expensive oyster you can buy. Then the Appalachians, and then the Texas right now. Texas is coming in below both of those.
Jeff also gave us the opportunity to look at several oyster specimens from Apalachicola Bay.
A little small, but they've been smaller than this.
Yeah.
And we've got two beds that are in the winter cycle that we're not using at all because of they are giving them time to grow. And the cold weather that we're going through now, they can grow that in real fast.
They grow better in the cold, don't they?
Yeah, that's exactly when they put on weight. I was trying to find the one. All right.
There you go.
See these edges right here, how skinny that is?
Yeah.
And it's almost pliable. You can almost bend it with your fingers. All right, that oyster was here. It's pushed out that far, and all this is new growth around here. See how skinny it is?
Yeah.
So they're growing now, and another week that'll be another quarter of an inch. So we're really seeing an accelerated growth rate right now, and the meat inside the oyster is putting on weight,
Okay.
which is good because they'll push out, and eventually, a new shell will grow. I mean, the oyster will fill it. See that?
Yeah.
And it's attached to this. This oyster attached, and this one's pushed out from there that far. So we're going to have a bigger oyster now. I don't know if that one broke or someone chopped it or what. But when they get real, see how the bottom shell's out? See the white?
Yeah.
That one's pushing. And we only had 1 or 2 cold days. These were caught on Thursday. We got fresh water in there. That's all new growth. So that's kind of promising.
Okay.
Considering we're only on the one bed.
In addition to the restaurants here in town, local seafood markets have also been affected by the oyster situation. We're here at Spears Seafood Market on Lake Bradford Street to talk to their staff about the oyster situation.
But I know how to slow down and back up. Get some more sun slurp and eat my salads for a while. Then get me a meal about once a week and eat.
How long have you worked at this location?
About a year.
And can you explain to us the process of how you acquire your oysters?
Well, my boss man just calls the seafood house and orders whatever he wants.
Okay.
Like Barber Seafood,
Okay.
people like that.
So they based in Apalachicola or here in Tallahassee?
They get the oysters from Apalachicola. Mostly.
And how's the recent decline over the past few years of oyster production affecting your business?
Drastically.
Drastic.
Yeah, prices keep going up, harder to get them. All kind of problems.
Okay. And has the oyster problem in Apalachicola forced you to acquire oysters from different regions?
Yep.
Which regions specifically?
Most time we get Texas oysters.
Have there been any new rules and regulations that have directly affected your business from?
Now that, I don't know. My boss man would have to answer that.
Okay. How have the customers reacted to the oyster problem and the rises in prices?
Well, And of course, they don't like higher prices. And the supply is not always there. So that makes them not happy.
If the oyster production in Apalachicola is like day-to-day like stop production for a period of time, how do you plan to respond if the oysters are production is halted?
I wouldn't have any other choice but to get what I could from any other source.
And what do you think are some of the solutions that can be used to lessen the damage or possibly improve oyster production or oyster development in the bay?
Well, I think the number one thing is that river that they messing with in Georgia is they let that go, you know, and let the flow get back like it used to. That would increase production.
So you think the flow of sediment that they're messing up in Georgia is the primary problem?
Biggest problem, yeah.
Okay.
SWC is another problem.
How are they being problematic?
Well, like how they control, they make it less and less the men can get because they're messing with the supply, you know, continuously.
Okay. All right. We're here at Capital City Seafood on Capital Circle to talk with their staff as well about the oyster situation in Apalachicola. I'm sorry. And how long have you worked here at Capital City Seafood?
Family-owned operation, family's been in business 28 years.
And can you explain the process of how you acquire oysters from Apalachicola?
We haven't been getting hardly anything out of Apalachicola because it's being shipped in either out of Texas or being shipped up from Cincinnati.
And how has the decline of oyster production in Apalachicola affected your business?
With the price situation, about a year or 2 years ago, our sales were probably down to half.
And how do you plan to respond if oyster production in Apalachicola is halted?
I'm all for it. If it's going to benefit it down in the future, then I'm all for it. For a few years, I'm all for it.
And what do you think are some of the solutions that could either eliminate the problem or lessen the damage?
I'm really not sure. They just need to leave it alone and let it reproduce more, I guess, and just have better size limits and just have, I guess, better regulations on how much a oyster can harvest per day, I guess, or weekly. Just give them a limit on how much they can harvest. That might help with the oyster.
Although the situation looks dire here in Apalachicola, the FWC and other government agencies have been working tirelessly to find a solution. Hopefully these agencies will be able to find strict regulations and find a solution to fix the oyster problem in Apalachicola.